Hi, welcome to the Agent Odyssey. My name's Matt Wyman. I am CEO and co founder of Acario. Acario provides a simulation platform for voice chat and headless agents so you can see what they're doing and fix them if you need to. Today, I'm very excited to have Joel Garcia with us on the podcast. Joel's actually a CEO and co founder of Cloud Contact. And instead of my describing Cloud Contact, actually, I'd rather hand it over to you, Joel, and let you
Sure.
describe a bit of
Yeah.
what you're doing.
Thanks for having me, Matt. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we run Cloud Contact AI, and effectively, Cloud Contact AI is a platform that leverages both SMS, email, and voice to do outbound communication, which we then turn into bidirectional communication.
Hmm.
So back in the day, I worked for a company by the name of Livox, where we had a hosted dialer. Basically, we were doing a lot of telephony with custom asterisk servers using OpenVXML, communicating with carriers and sending out a large number of calls. And so we had a predictive dialer. The predictive dialer would route you through what was called an ACD, an automatic call distributor that would enable you to communicate with someone who's live. But as we've seen, the world has changed, and so with kind of the advent of the mobile device, people no longer really answer the phone, but there are much better ways to get a hold of them, specifically text and email. And so we built Cloud Contact AI to kind of address that need, initially for SMBs to enable them to reach out to their customer base.
Absolutely. And what's amazing is you have a pre as well as a current view of the same activity, of the way it was done and the way you're doing it now. And I'm curious, in many cases, as you said, it's hard to get people to respond. You're reaching out to all these folks. But then once they actually connect, well, then what? I mean, I'm curious how you're thinking about that life cycle.
Oh, no, absolutely. And so that's the good part, right? And the good part is when you actually get you don't, your email doesn't end up in the spam filter, your SMS gets acknowledged and you get a response. And so what we found there is it really depends upon who you're contacting, right? So
Hmm.
if you're contacting a cold lead list, then you may get a huge number of responses. So we've seen, you're not supposed to do it, but you can do it if you do the opt-in. But we've seen, you get 20 to 30% response rate. And ends up happening there is you may have picked up a list that has a number of phone numbers where there's an automated response. And
Ah,
so you may want to find out that, or you may want to identify that I don't want to contact these people again because if it's SMS, then effectively I'm wasting my money. So one of the things that we've done is we've started to build these different types of agents that perform different tasks. And so what we found is that if we keep the task of the agent relatively small, then we can throw them on models which are cheaper, for lack of a better term. It's something like an Amazon Nova Pro as opposed to an expensive Open AI. So one of the features that we've built out is just the ability to figure out whether the person who is responding to us is human, right?
hmm,
What we've seen is some of our customers say that they've collected the opt-in, but they don't always. And then the next thing you know, they have a huge list, and then they're texting out all these business numbers which have an autoresponder turned on. Next thing you know, they got 5,000 messages in the inbox. No one wants to go through that. And so,
right.
really, what's happening is you get these different types of agents. Some of the agents are used literally just to categorize. So as before, we'd have like a keyword filter to route it to a different folder, something like that. Now we can have the AI determine what type of message it is for subsequent follow up. And so what that enables us to do is enables us to filter out whether it's a machine or whether it's a human. Then once I determine whether it's a human, then I can launch basically a different agent that can communicate with that human, or I can route it to a physical human being if it's a high value customer. So just doing those sorts of simple tasks with agents, otherwise you have to pay someone to do that. The
Right.
productivity game is huge.
Right. How are you thinking about that transition moment when you go from post classification, you have the agent that classifies, you now see who's actually responded and who hasn't. There's a moment there where you have to decide, okay, am I going to have an agent respond to this person? Is I'm going to have a synthetic conversation on the one side, or do I want to route it to a human? How does that decision around trust work for the agent, both for yourself and for your customers?
Right now, it's primarily based upon the way that the agent categorizes it. So if
Hmm.
it's more of an informational request, then we'll route it to the agent. Like if it's someone's reaching out, what time is the facility open at? Or, are you open on Christmas? Then those types of requests will get routed to an SMS agent that's set up for that particular customer. If it's a payment request or it has anything to do with money, we will route it to a human being. And what we found is that the AI when it comes to payments can do things that you don't want, right?
Right.
So it's just a little bit easier if we don't have the AI asking for their credit card information over text or just boneheaded things. And you can build it into the prompt, you can build it into the model, but it's just easier when it comes to money if you route that to a human being that you trust.
Are you finding your customers understand this and are sort of leaning in and asking you for this, or do you have to educate along the way?
Oh, we have to educate, right? A
Yeah.
lot of people don't truly understand. It's so new. So you kind of run into it with kind of chatbots that you see on a website. A lot of people still use like a HubSpot or something where it doesn't route it to an agent. And so part of the understanding for the client is just explaining to them how that works and how they can trust it. Same is true with the SMS agents. The SMS agents are are very I mean, what they provide is they provide kind of that 24 by 7 support that you would never get from, a 9 to 5 person, which is staggering, right? And so what we've seen is that when someone responds, the agent responds immediately, which means that we will have a fruitful conversation as opposed to having a delay. So there are
Mhm.
multiple benefits just in terms of response time and communication, but most of the customers still are a little bit apprehensive. So what that means is we basically take baby steps. So informational stuff we route to the agent. Anything else we'll route to a human being. And hopefully, as they get more used to dealing, with the agents, then they get a better comfort level.
As you're building your business, do you see that changing rapidly as you're pushing out, or do you think it's
Oh
going to
yeah.
stay in this?
Oh no, no. So what ends up happening a lot of our customers don't necessarily know what's going on the back end. So they'll expect the agent to be able to do things that it can't do, right?
Right.
So, put together a loan offer, put together something using the latest interest rate, put together, it's just like, well, how will that work, right? And
And should
so
it even work?
well, I mean, so from an informational standpoint, you could say, would you like for me to give you the latest interest rate for this particular loan or something like that? But that question, even though it's 7 or 8 words, can be really complicated. That means I have
Oh
to
yeah.
do an account lookup on a particular loan, determine the amount, determine about the amount of the interest. I mean, it's just whoa, right? So and it's just, is that something that you really want to delegate to the agent? Maybe if the rest of your infrastructure is capable of handling that, but for most people, they're just not, right? And so then you have to educate. So it's it's definitely tricky, right? So if you're going around saying that you have agents, the question is, well, what does the agent do? And then, what is the data source that you're pulling from, right? So, maybe I'm pulling from a little, fact database that has a bunch of frequently answered questions in terms of when the facilities are open or, when the playing seasons are. And so for that type of situation, it may be good. But obviously for payments or interest rates or settlements, then obviously you probably don't want to do that quite yet.
Yeah, you probably don't want to ask an agent to presume a DTI and then
Yep.
pull off a rate card, a specific loan, not only, loan rate, but amount. I mean, who knows what actually would happen if you
Yeah.
actually get the details. But it raises this interesting question that I'm also seeing. as we work with folks, that the sort of, I think of it as a trust factor, but that willingness or expectation for the agent to take certain actions is not always aligned to the reality. And
Oh,
as a business, it's really hard. I mean, I'm finding it interesting and in many cases difficult to get some consistency across them because some are way forward, that they're more willing to delegate more tasks to the agent. Others are further behind, a little bit more
well, that
concerned. And so it trying to get everyone to at least somewhat move together in the same direction has been, at least at least from where I'm standing, has been difficult. So I'm
oh,
curious how you're dealing with that.
well, it has a different personality. The different agents have different personalities, and people once they figure out the behavior, they don't want to change, right?
Mm,
So
mhm.
there's when we've talked to people before about switching from a Claude to an Open AI or to a Nova Pro or something. And then it's just like, we've tested this. We've tested this on, our 30 most frequent use cases. What you want me to regression test again, all for a little bit of cost savings? No, so there isn't really kind of there's fear there, for lack of a better
Yeah,
term. And
yeah.
to your point, the majority of the agents, unless you educate them pretty well, behave kind of like adolescent teenage boys. And so you would you would never really want your adolescent teenage boy to help with support. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've seen kind of most of the use cases for AI to be kind of the generation of static assets that can be evaluated by humans because think code generation, think code review. The reason we've seen that is because there's a human there's a gatekeeper to make sure that that doesn't get out, and it's a little bit trickier with agents when they're on the front line. Now, what we've seen is you can stick them on the front line for sort of informational purposes, or you can, the other way that we've seen them work very well is if you have a human in there who's doing the communication, then they can communicate with the agent to figure out the best thing to say. So I think
Right.
we're getting there, but we're still a little bit off of just having it fully baked agent communication for all use cases. I think it'll stay that way for a little bit of time, just because there's certain things that people just aren't willing to have them do yet.
That sounds like what you're finding is they're willing to take your lead on
Yeah.
how much to delegate and how much not to delegate, what types of tasks to run, which ones not to.
Well, so in part you have to do that because that's the reason kind of Lang chain and these different models exist is you have to keep the scope narrow in order for a particular agent to answer a particular problem. And then as you move to sort of the next step in the workflow, it may be an entirely different model that's solely devoted to informational stuff,
Yeah,
right? As
absolutely.
opposed to having more of an AGI which can answer it, which is all knowing. It's just not quite there yet, where you can just stick the agent on the front line without having it do almost some like binary decisions to determine which the next agent is that you're going to invoke.
Yeah, I think those of us who actually are seeing agents in production recognize that the promise of AGI, it's wonderful, but we're still trying to get to the second nine of reliability. We're like, maybe you're at 90%, we're trying to get to 99, but I think,
Yeah, maybe. I mean,
expecting
I
AGI is
still,
going to somehow, yeah,
yeah, we
it's
still have a
wonderful,
ways
but
to
it's
go.
distant.
Oh yeah, well,
Um,
and particularly in terms of integrations, because what ends up happening when we're talking to our customers is they just kind of assume that the agent's going to have access to all of their internal details, which is just not the case at all, right? So,
Especially in a regulated environment.
oh my god, right? It's just, and then there's security issues and all sorts of. I mean, it's just we're just not quite there yet. But that's not to say that we will be there soon, or that we won't be there soon. It's just what ends up happening is once you start engaging with the agent, you want the agent to do more, and then
Mm,
it becomes more of an infrastructure lift, where now all of a sudden I've got to go out to X database and pull this information, a Y database and pull this information, and then open it up with an API, and maybe stick in an MCP that the agent can communicate with. It's just the work grows, right?
yep. Yep. But that's the nature of these things, right? It's
Yep,
like pulling on rope. You just
yep,
didn't know the rope was attached before you started pulling. But that's kind of the other side of it. I'm
yep,
curious. I mean, with all of that, and what about other parts of your business? I mean, essentially, you're an AI native,
yep,
right? You're delivering agents, running these different tasks, which means you have wonderful insight into what works and what doesn't work.
yep,
How is it transforming other parts of your business? Where else are you relying on? And whether you build them or not, I mean, this is less
yeah.
about build versus buy. This is more about what is it doing to the shape of the business itself.
Yeah, so and from a product standpoint, I think, the product is just it's morphing.
Mm,
So, basically, I think we're gonna and we've started to see this a little bit with the code generators, with, like, the Base 44s, and the cursors of the world where, the new UI paradigm may start to become chat, right?
start to move.
So it may, initially we had kind of the CLI, and then we had, Windows or the GUI, and we had drag and drop builders. And what we may be starting to see is kind of the evolution of just chatting to build things. So that's
Hmm.
one of the things that we've discussed, which is, can we instead of telling the user to click here and do this and to do this, can you just chat with it and have it do outbound communication? That's one thing. Another thing is, right now when you're communicating out, um, you have to pick your contact lists and do these different steps. Perhaps you don't do that anymore, and perhaps you profile each one of the contacts and determine when the best time to reach out is, and then have the agent initiate the campaign so you get out of scheduling. So from a product standpoint, there's all sorts of things that you just have to figure out which one has the most bang for its buck. But it definitely goes to without saying that it's introduced the idea of new capabilities that can streamline outbound communication, whether it be
Absolutely.
through managing contact lists or sending out information. So the product itself will evolve. And then in terms of operations, I think we went through this a little bit before, but it's just, every one of your employees is going to start to leverage it in some form or fashion, whether it be, developers generating code, DevOps people generating, CloudFormation or Terraform templates, um, analysts uploading the data and basically saying, these SMSs went out, but then they got blocked. Why did they get blocked? Is there something to do, So just the jobs kind of changed because now all of a sudden you're able to use these items that are able to munge through a ton of data quickly. And I don't have to build a pivot table. I don't have to do these analyst type roles that I used before. Now you still probably want to do one because you want to check to make sure
Sure.
that what the thing did is correct, but where it's going to become more and more automated. So if you actually know the system and know what's going on, you're going to be able to diagnose problems quicker. And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think it should be a multiplier. And I think that's the way that we sort of view it, which is your really good resources should be able to do 5, 6x, right? They
Yeah.
should just become that much more efficient.
I'm noticing, and that resonates immensely. I'm noticing that it's so much easier to run integrations and attach things together that I can get best of breed. I can get pieces. So, for example, I have essentially an agent hub for my GTM or marketing space where I've connected all these different data sources, both inbound and outbound,
Right.
and I'm able to see, who's coming in and classify them. And, I get a little note in Slack when someone who's really seems to fit what we do shows up and is looking around. And similarly, on the other side, if I want to have conversations, I can get a history very quickly. I can do discovery more efficiently. There are many elements that get interconnected where, in companies I've been in that are, doing, billion-dollar companies plus, getting to that level of operational integration and efficiency is hard. There's just a
Oh,
lot of systems, a lot of people involved, and it's a step function change,
yeah.
that I think is an advantage to those of us who are starting in this period and have a chance to have a clean slate.
Oh, there's no doubt, right? I mean, as opposed to inheriting, 100 legacy projects that are written in Java 11 that now I have to migrate into Java 19. I mean, it's just, and so it's just, it's a game changer. It's like now all of a sudden I'm able to move with new technology and I'm able to move much quicker without having those kind of almost throwing away those legacy systems and just not even worrying about them. So yeah, we're definitely at a point of inflection where things will start to move quicker, solutions will start to come out, and with smaller teams. I don't doubt that.
Do you have, I mean, I'm not sure it'd be formalized, but do you find yourself with a person internally who's like, this is the person who's thinking about our general operations and using agents to create automation across our operations? Or is it really each person kind of using these mechanisms as co-pilots just to accelerate their own areas?
It's we don't have one person. We're trying to bring on someone to help with that. But what it is it's kind of expected now, so that when there
It
are
is,
new
isn't it?
tasks that need to be done, you're not going to go off and start from scratch.
Right.
Right? And so it's literally one of those things where you're almost trying to lead by example. So when you're hopping on a call and you're doing a screen share and you're showing what you're doing, some of the time you may be demonstrating, integrating with or communicating with an AI so that they can see how you do it to pull out information. Right. And
Yeah.
it's just, I mean, and there are a number of different options now. There are different tools, whether you're doing software development or whether you're doing marketing or image creation. It's just you just have to stay on top of it, and then you just have to make it known that the expectation is that you're just not gonna write this stuff from scratch. It
Absolutely. I mean,
take you too
I
long.
think,
Yeah, it
oh
just
yeah.
right?
And it helps with this opportunity to think differently about how you're gonna run the business. So I'm curious in that vein. I asked a lot of people this, and so far, very few people are actually there. But pricing is an area of passion for me, and I'm always thinking about like, well, what about outcome pricing? How about
Yeah.
packaging? Do people package and price differently, given that the agents with the automation are much more aligned to business needs as opposed to technical needs? And I'm curious, have you found opportunity or even want to kind of mix up the pricing and packaging in some new ways based on that, or
Well,
how are you thinking about it?
obviously, we're charging for the AI invocations.
Mm.
And I think part of the thing that we've been discussing is, how, right? I mean, because the token model that the majority of the clients use or the majority of the providers use, it's complicated. And most people
It
don't
is. It
understand
really
it.
is.
And they don't understand the ROI. I mean, I still don't think there's a good ROI mechanism to understand what I'm getting from every one of these invocations where I'm paying you money. So, really, what we've been doing is just incorporating that into kind of a subscription add-on fee, and then at some point, it may get us into trouble if they start to use it too much. But our
Maybe a
thought,
good problem to have.
yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. No, no, that's exactly. You pay us X for this, and we'll turn on the AI agents, and then from that we'll gain the data points to try to figure out how we actually price it. Right?
Yeah.
Just because the token model just it's,
I think it's fine for infrastructure. If
yeah,
you're in
we need
infrastructure and you're using CPU cycles, tokens, it all fits that world. But the moment you start to layer models together and create systems, then tokens don't have any relationship to the actual value.
no, you're right.
But I do think, I mean, arguably phone calls or messages received or some such. But I'm very intrigued by this notion of aligning all, as much as possible all the way through to the ROI,
Yeah,
in terms of actual contacts made, or some flavor that the business can really grab onto that's more aligned. We'll see. I'm
yeah,
still waiting for it to happen. I'm hoping someday
yeah, well,
we'll see
no,
it more consistently.
they're just it doesn't exist. I think it's premature, to be perfectly honest. It would be
Yeah,
kinda like trying to get the ROI from having a website when you're a brick and mortar. Unless you're an e-commerce shop, you just don't know what you're getting out of it, right? You're just, "Okay, I got a website, right? What am I getting out of it?" I mean, and
it's
still
still pretty ephemeral in
yeah,
many
don't
cases.
know.
Like, we all know it's important, but like precisely how to dollar value that criticality is tough. And I
Yeah,
think with automation, it's going to be similar.
I think so.
Um, this is amazing. I'd love to ask one last question.
Sure.
I ask everyone. uh, bringing it back to all of us humans, I'm always curious what kind of skills and learnings that you think people need to sort of lean into to be ready for this world of AI and all these new tools that are coming.
Oh, I think you have to be technical and you have to try to get ahead of it. And so, the technical work may eventually become obsolete. And as those guys say, we may need universal basic income, but at least for the current time being, you have to try to stay ahead of it so that you can use it as an advantage, right? Just and it's you have to embrace the change. I think
Yeah.
and so that's what we're trying to do. Even though, sometimes you think you're a little bit late, but then you realize, oh no, I live in San Francisco and Silicon Valley, and that's all we do is, it's like we had a friend or a guy who works for us come up from Latin America, and he was driving up the 101. He was just like, I've never seen anything like it. It's like it's just AI, this, AI, this. And I was like,
What do these billboards even mean? Do you have a decoder for me? I don't understand.
I don't know, right? But it's just like, no, it's just the world that we live in. So even though sometimes it's like, oh, we're falling behind a little bit, the reality is that we're just so inundated with it that it's just hard to. It's hard if I went to Chicago or New York or Hollywood, then it would just be Hollywood be the film industry. It would just that's just what they live. So I
But
think
we are in a moment that's really ramping right now. I mean, we it does. I know the feeling of like, oh, I'm late, I'm late, I'm late. The rabbit running in Alice in Wonderland. But actually, we're very, very, very early. Like
we're early.
almost too much so. We're
Yeah,
still trying to figure this out, and that's why it's changing so rapidly. So,
yeah,
no, I love that. I agree. At one point in time, wheels and books were new technology. Now we take it for granted. From what we're dealing with right now, will not be considered technology. It'll just be part of the world and the fiber around us. We
absolutely.
have to get used to it.
Yep.
So,
Got to embrace it because it's gonna come quick.
exactly. All right. Well, Joel, thank you for the great conversation today. Really
Yeah, I
appreciate
enjoyed
it.
it, Matt.